Hello everyone, my name is Keely. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you've been here before. Today I am very excited because we are going to be talking about my favorite books of 2022. So I have 10 books that I wanted to show you. It was hard to narrow it down because I had 32 5 stars over the year, but I narrowed it down to 10 books. Now I have a very wide variety of genres that I read from and love, so this list is kind of all over the place, but that's very much how my reading is, so hopefully you'll find something in here that you might love as well. So coming in at number 10, we have Camp Slaughter by Sergio Gomez, and this is an adult horror novel. It is actually a slasher book. So this is set in the secluded woods in Pennsylvania in the middle of nowhere, and there is actually a killer that lives in this woods. So we follow a group of college kids that rent out a cabin to go and party for the weekend, and they get a lot more than they bargained for when this cannibalistic killer shows up and just starts slashing and killing everyone. We also, throughout the book, get glimpses of other kills and other couples and people that he meets in these woods and what he does with them. It is not for the faint of heart, so if you are not into horror, not into slashers, then I would not recommend. But if you are okay with that, then I would definitely recommend because it was so much fun. So for years now, I have always said that slashers were not my thing. I am not a huge slasher fan, but this book opened my eyes into slasher literature and I had so much fun with it, and I realized that I really love slashers in books. So this book is actually interesting too because we get the point of view of the killer, so we get to see inside his head and how he works, which makes it all the more gruesome. The kills in this were also very interesting and bloody and just really fun, for lack of a better word, to read about because they were all so different and unique. I also loved how we didn't just follow one set of characters. We did for the majority of it, but like I said, different chapters would start with different people throughout the woods and how these people had no idea what was going on in this secluded part of Pennsylvania. It was such a cool setting. I love anything with a cabin vibe or anything in the woods. It just adds to a horror book so much, and I absolutely loved it, and it just opened up so much more of this genre for me, and I cannot recommend it enough. Coming in at number 9, we have another slasher, but this one is young adult. Don't worry, after this we're done with slashers, but that is How to Survive Your Murder by Danielle Valentine. So this book actually takes place on Halloween night, and we follow sisters Alice and Claire, and they are going to this Halloween party, and there's actually a maze there, a spooky little corn maze, and Claire really wants to go through the maze, but Alice doesn't. So Alice just goes and joins the party while her sister Claire goes into the maze by herself. When Alice is at the party, she realizes Claire hasn't been around for a while, so she goes into the maze to look for Claire, and sadly, she becomes the only witness to her sister Claire's murder. So a year later, we are at the trial for Claire's murder, and Alice falls and hits her head, and she wakes up in a Groundhog Day scenario where she is on Halloween night again when her sister was murdered, and she has the chance to stop it and uncover a serial killer. So the slasher vibes in here were absolutely perfect. It was so fast-paced and action-packed, I had to keep reading to find out what happened next. I also loved that at the beginning of this, Alice, the sister, was super obsessed with true crime. She even hosted a podcast, but after her sister's murder, she kind of saw the darker side of true crime and how it can be hurtful to victims and their families. The fall vibes in here were also really great, and it definitely felt like Halloween and was really spooky, so this is a perfect fall read. I will say that the end of this book wasn't my favorite because it was more open-ended, and I am definitely a closed-ended girl, but I just had so much fun throughout the story overall. It is a short, quick read, and the vibes once again were immaculate. So shifting gears a little bit, coming in at number 9, we have a middle grade, and that is Julian the Shark by Kieran Millwood Hargrave. So in this book, we follow a little girl named Julia, and she is an only child that lives with her parents. Her dad is an electrician, and her mother is a marine biologist that is obsessed with finding the Greenland shark and figuring out its secrets to a long life. So one day they move to a lighthouse on an island so her dad can fix up the lighthouse because it's broken, and her mom is finding it the perfect opportunity to find the Greenland shark because they are now living where the shark likes to roam. This book is a lot about love and grief and mental illness and a little girl trying to navigate her way through all of that, and you get to see mental illness through the eyes of the child and what it's like for a child when a loved one is struggling with that illness. This was absolutely heartbreaking in the most beautiful way. The cover of this is just a little glimpse of to the beautiful illustrations inside. So there's a lot of like yellow in here and gray and black, so it's a very monochromatic style, and I absolutely loved it, and I thought it added so much to it because it was about mental health and how sometimes there could be just a little bit light if you really look for it. I just thought this was so stunning. The writing was breathtaking, and I also read this at the lowest point of the year for me, and it was just everything I needed in that moment, and I really, really recommend it. Coming in at number 7, we have an adult thriller, and that is No Exit by Taylor Adams. This book is on a lot of people's favorite lists, and so I was excited to get to it, and I was worried that I wouldn't love it as much, but it did not disappoint. So we follow a college student named Darby, and she is having to travel home to Utah because her mom is in the hospital. Along the way, a huge snowstorm comes through the Colorado mountains, and she gets trapped at a rest stop with several other strangers. When she's in the parking lot trying to look for cell service, she sees this big van, and she sees a small child's hand poking up through the window, and she realizes that a child is trapped in this van, and so now she has to figure out which stranger is a kidnapper. So this is such a thrilling, fast-paced book. I have never read anything so incredibly fast-paced, and it was needed in every aspect. Like, it was perfect. It was never too fast-paced. It was always so much fun to read. There were some crazy twists in here, but I just felt like it added so much to the story. Nothing was overdone or cheesy. Also, the snowy, isolated setting was absolutely perfect, and I loved how high stakes this book was. I really can't say too much about it because you need to go in as blind as possible because of the craziness that happens in this book, but I highly, highly recommend it, especially if you love thrillers, or if you are looking into getting into thrillers. I feel like this is the perfect book to start with. Coming in at number 6, we have another snowy, isolated thriller, and that is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. I read this book at the beginning of the year, and it really stuck with me. So we follow a married couple, Adam and Amelia, and they're kind of having some marriage trouble, so they decide to go on a getaway, just them two, and they go stay in this very old church that's been turned into kind of like an Airbnb in the Scottish Highlands. So once again, it is very snowy. They are out there completely by themselves, and it's a very spooky atmosphere because it is set in an old church, and not to mention the marriage problems on top of that. So this book is so crazy. The way that it was written was amazing and beautiful, and I cannot wait to read more from Alice Feeney because the writing was just so intriguing. This is another book, unfortunately, that I can't tell you much about because you just need to go in pretty blind. Thrillers are that way, and this is definitely one of those because it has a crazy plot twist that I absolutely loved, and I just really, really recommend this one as well. Of course, I recommend all these books, but this was just such a top-tier thriller. So now we are in the top 5 books of 2022, and coming in at number 5 is a book that you've probably heard me talk about many, many times if you've been to this channel before, and that is All of Us Villains by Christine Lynn Herman and Amanda Foody. This is a young adult fantasy book set in a kingdom called Ilvernath, and in Ilvernath, every 20 years there is a deadly magical tournament where 7 magical families each send one champion into this tournament, and they all have to fight to the death, and the winner gets the high magic for their family for the next 20 years. So we all follow young teenagers, basically kind of Hunger Games style, and we get several point of views in this book, and I loved every point of view so much. They all had their own voice and all sounded so unique, and they just had this way of making you care for them even though they are villains and are tasked with killing each other for this magic. The tournament was also so much fun, but my favorite part was actually the magic system. And I am not a huge fantasy reader, so this magic system was absolutely perfect for me, and I can't speak on if it's like told well or fleshed out well because I'm not a fantasy girl, but for me it was perfect. So the way that this works is they all have like these rings, and each ring has a gemstone on it, and the spell or the curse is set into these gemstones, so you have to be wearing these rings in order to cast the magic. And the descriptions they tell, it just seemed honestly beautiful and just like so much fun. My favorite character in here is Alistair, and he is so broody and mysterious and just kind of the bad boy demeanor, but he's also a sweetheart down deep inside, and I just really love this book. I highly recommend it if you love young adult fantasy. I was blown away with it. Coming in at number 4, we have an adult romance, and that is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This is one that you have probably heard of many times, and you might be sick of hearing about it, but I loved it so much. So we follow PhD candidate Olive, and her best friend are working in this PhD program, and her best friend is interested in Olive's kind of they're not really exes, but they had like a fling at one point. And so in order to tell her best friend, it's okay, you can date him, she tells her that she has a boyfriend even though she doesn't. And so when they are at school one day, she told her best friend she's on a date, and her best friend's like, why are you here? So Olive kisses the first person she sees, which happens to be a professor named Adam. Now Adam is all grumpy and broody and like this mean professor that everyone hates, but now they have to pretend that they are dating to please Olive's best friend. I love the fake dating trope so much. I also love that this is a STEMinist, science story. I'm not a science girl, and so reading something that seems attainable to me in the science world is really fascinating. I also love the dynamic between the PhD student and the professor, kind of a little forbiddenness going on there, but it's not too wild because he's not her actual professor, he just works at the school that she is in. I love their dynamic, the grumpy sunshine dynamic, and I loved the problems that arose in this book and how they solved them, because Adam cares for Olive so much. I just thought it was so sweet and so romantic, and I cannot wait to read more from this author. We are now into the top 3, and coming in at number 3 we have a young adult romance, and that is A Pho Love Story by Lone Lee, and this is actually my new favorite young adult romance of all time. So this is kind of a Romeo and Juliet retelling, but with competing Vietnamese restaurants. So we follow Bao and Len, and they are both children of these competing restaurants that are actually across the way from each other. So they have avoided each other most of their lives because their families cannot stand each other, but one chance encounter has sparks flying. I thought it was so much fun and so unique. Even though it is a Romeo and Juliet retelling, it just felt like a story completely on its own. I also love anything that has to do with food or restaurants in the story, and competing restaurants just adds a whole dynamic that I absolutely love. I also love that we get a glimpse into an Asian American lifestyle and how different it is, say, from my lifestyle, and how important it is to their families to live up to a certain standard. It really shows you what the Vietnamese culture is like, and I definitely learned a lot reading this. But also these sparks you could feel coming off the page, and you were really rooting for the characters. The side characters in this story were also really great. This book actually made me incredibly hungry, and I have been craving Vietnamese food ever since. But please, if you pick up one book on this list, please pick this book up. So coming in at number 2 is a book you've probably heard me talk about already too, and that is Hunting Prince Dracula by Carrie Maniscalco. I cannot believe this book made it all the way up to number 2 of my favorites list. But if you haven't heard, this is book 2 in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, and we follow Audrey Rose and Thomas Cresswell. This is set in the 1800s, and so it's pretty different because Audrey Rose is really interested in forensics and death and science, and that's not very becoming of a young lady her age. But her and Thomas are both shadowing her uncle, and they get really into forensics, and sparks fly. So this book in particular is set in snowy Romania, where they are both going to a forensics school. They are set in an old castle with snow all around them, and there is a village just down the path through the forest. The setting of this, I'm telling you, is what really sold me on this book. I don't think I could find a more perfect setting in any book ever. It reminds me a lot of the Hogwarts castle. This book also included secret chambers, so I was getting a lot of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets vibes. They also had to go through different tasks and trials within these chambers, and it was very life or death. Also, Thomas Cresswell was not my favorite in the first book. A lot of people are obsessed with him, and I just didn't understand why, but this book, I get it now. I get it. He is so amazing, but he also is very analytical, but the reason I fell in love with him in this book is because we get to see his emotional side as well, and how much he really cares for Audrey Rose. I really loved the forensic school setting. I'm a sucker for forensics as well. I know I'm not a science girl, but forensics is my thing. I studied forensics in college, so I really love reading a story about it. And not to mention vampires. This is Dracula, so a lot of the deaths in this book at this school were vampiric in nature. I absolutely love this book, and I am so glad because Stalking Jack the Ripper was missing a little bit of something for me, and I found it in this book. Definitely love it so, so much. So coming in at number 1, my favorite book of 2022 is a book that I have never heard anyone talk about. It's also a book I don't know if I would recommend to anyone because I don't know if anyone but me would actually like it. This is a book that when I look back on it, I don't know why I love it so much, I just do. And I will try to tell you about it as much as I can, but I don't know if it can convince you to pick it up. But that book is The Electric Kingdom by David Arnold. As soon as I read this book earlier this year, I knew it would be my favorite book of the year. Once again, can't even tell you why, but I just love it so much, and it just gave me that 5-star new favorite feeling. So this is actually a post-apocalyptic story. So in this story, the world has come down with a fly flu. In this world, flies have taken over and they have kind of become killer and bloodthirsty animals. So think of it like sharks, but in the sky. They are still small flies, but they are very strong and bloodthirsty. They can smell blood from miles away, and they can come and physically pick up a human and fly off with them. So flies in this world are very, very dangerous, and if you hear the swarm coming, you better hide because they will kill you and take you away. So in this book, we follow a very diverse, eclectic group of characters that are just traveling through the world trying to find their way and trying to find the meaning of life, basically, and try to figure out how to survive. So one of the points of view we follow in the story is Nico and her dog. And Nico was sent on a journey by her father to go find a mythical portal. We don't know what that means, and Nico doesn't know what it means. We just know that her and her dad were not doing well, and so he sent Nico and their beloved dog to go find a better life. We also follow a young artist named Kit who grew up in an abandoned movie theater. So it's a really cool aspect because Kit actually lives with this found family in this town, and they each have their own building, and Kit's building is the theater. And then finally, we also follow a mysterious character called the Deliverer. We have no idea who the Deliverer is. We just know that they provide and give life to several people that they come across. It is so mysterious. The different points of views just give a very wide variety of insight into this world and how the flu and the epidemic affects people. It's also really interesting because this is 20 years after the end of the world. So a lot of times in apocalypse stories, we see the beginning of it or we see how it's currently affecting people, but this is the only world that these characters know. All they know is the danger of the flies and how to survive that. This writing was just so beautiful. There were so many times where I wanted to highlight and underline and annotate, and I really want to reread this book at the beginning of the year to once again understand why I love it so much, but also to go through and annotate it because there was just something about it. I was like, you're right. Like, it just really made me introspective in a way I didn't know that an apocalyptic book could do. But I definitely do recommend this book if it sounds a little bit interesting to you, or if you are just interested in reading it to kind of figure out why I like it so much. But I am definitely going to reread it to figure out why I like it so much because I can't even tell you. It has just stuck with me since I read it. So those are my favorite books that I read in 2022. Let me know your favorite book that you read this year. I would love to know. I always need new recommendations, but that is it for this video. If you have made it this far in the video, go ahead and leave the pink heart emoji. But that is it. Thank you so much for watching. As always, all my social media links will be down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!